The Fixer.
Yeah, I met him when he was 12.
So Amanda the Fixer.
Yeah, he was 12 and I was 24.
Is going to share her wisdom with us.
Or her non-wisdom. Or her don't do this at home, folks.
Yes, right? Overcoming obstacles.
Yeah.
Coming out better.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so start. I'm just going to listen.
Okay.
For now.
I actually met him then in 2002.
2002
is when I met Cam. Yeah, we were next door neighbors.
Okay.
And there's quite an age gap, as you know, between us. When things were good in the beginning, people just thought it was magical, including myself.
Uh-huh.
I didn't think I was going to get emotional this quick.
Yay! Yay! It's working!
I blocked all the good out.
Opening hearts! Right.
I yelled at him last week, and I said, how dare you? I am in this cycle right now. I want to be sad that he's gone, finally. But at the same time, I'm still hurting, and when I still find out things that he did to me, then it opens all my hurt again, and then I get mad at him in this cycle. I want to be sad for you. I want to just mourn your loss, and then I get mad at you because I don't feel that you deserve that yet. I feel that he still deserves my anger. And then that makes me mad at him all over again because I'm like, how dare you? It just is like all these cycles of me being mad. And I just want to be sad. But then as soon as I want to be sad, then yes, I get mad. And then that's his fault too. Because all I want to do is mourn him because I did love him. I loved him very much. That's part of what got us here in the first place. But I lived beside him in Drumbo. I met him when he was 12 and I was 24. I was almost 24. There was 11 and a half years difference between us. I now know that part of his disease and part of his disconnect over his life of not feeling like he had a maternal mother, like what he needed, like what we all need. His mom and I have been able to talk. I know that she did cheat on Cam's dad, but he was horrible to her. And I'm not saying that's an excuse to cheat, but she found comfort and she would cry to his best friend, who was also married. The four of them always hung out together. And Rich was a very bad alcoholic. And he was actually an uneducated one. He was very smart. The uneducated part comes into play. That's why I'm mentioning it.
Yeah.
Because it's part of the foundation of what happened here. Okay. And he was horrible. And, well, on the outside of it, I now know what she went through with him. So Cam harbored a lot of anger towards his mom. And he feels like she abandoned them. And she didn't, but they wanted to stay with their dad because their dad filled their head with a lot of stories. And he was an alpha male. And again, meeting Cam at such a young age and hearing some stories from Rich, a lot of this I can surmise as being true. And so Terry chose to move to Orangeville, to Mono, with Terry. And Cam and Mitchie decided to stay with their dad. So they only had visitation with their mom. That was not her choosing, but it was her acceptance. That's what the boys wanted, so that's what she allowed. They did have regular visitation. She took them every other holiday. Anytime they needed something, she absolutely drove down. So I'll admit I used to like to judge her too in the younger years, but that's before I knew everything. Yeah. And people can believe what they want to believe, but once you put all those pieces of the puzzle together, then it does show the big picture. So Cam was missing a maternal figure in his life, and when we first began our relationship, like all of us as two households, I thought I was like his older sister.
Okay.
The relationship really did start out innocent. I did not start out being 24 years of age lusting after a 12-year-old. And here's a little bit more on my puzzle. I was already dealing with an alcoholic who was my own age, who I then decided to have a child with. Evan is an alcoholic. He's an unchecked one.
Right.
Zachary actually told me a couple of stories last night that I had actually never heard. And I said, why would your father do that? And I looked at him and he looked at me like this and I went, ah. And we both at the same time said, because he was drunk. That is what I already dealt with from Kevin in Drumbo, who was Zachary's dad. And I was not perfect, but I was a very present girlfriend. And it's only been the last couple months where I can attest to the fact that I am a pretty good person. And I do try my hardest. I've tried my hardest plus for all of my days. And it's just been the last couple of years where I've had trouble doing a lot of anything and keeping everything in my head straight. And so now I'm trying to find a new balance for that in my new life. And so I started retreats a few years ago to start to unpack why I appear to be choosing alcoholics in my life. This does stem from childhood trauma that I know I suffered and something that I'm keeping inside. And it actually was just like this, like a shimmer in the back of my mind, you know, like when you're driving and like sunlight hits you and it's like a shimmer as you're driving by, right? It's just like flashes of nothing. And I had those for a few years. I will admit I did not deep-seatedly block out anything. I've never forgotten. I just thought maybe it was like something, and I think I've said it out loud to you maybe once or twice and just in passing, but yeah. I was very close with my grandparents on my mom's side, and I love them very much, and I still do, but I think my grandfather had more problems than alcoholism, or I think the alcoholism made him be different. And I think that might be where, and I never fully unpacked this, so this is just like saying it in passing to maybe explain some stuff, but my grandfather always liked me close to him.
Yeah.
And I know my memories are not manufactured. I remember many an instance. Now, I could be blocking out more serious things. I gotta be honest, I don't think I am. I think what I remember is about the height of anything that ever happened. But I think that's from the time I became sexually active, that is where I put my worth. So I thought, if I could do that real good.
If I could do that real good.
Yep, you know, like the kid says it, then maybe boys will like me. Because that seems to be what stands out for people, including my own family members, I guess. So I've never continued to never really speak of it to this day. It's something I feel I can deal with. And again, I truly don't think I'm like blocking out some darker stuff. I really don't. I hope not. But I don't think so. But, you know, outside stuff still happened. And so, yeah, I think that's where I got that from an early age. And old guys especially who drink, they squeeze me out a bit. And I think that might be why. So I think that followed me. And so I think that's part of also what made me become a fixer. And if I could fix everybody, then things like that wouldn't happen. people wouldn't have to hide things. People wouldn't have to
Mhm.
live life a different way. If I could just help heal people, but I didn't think of it as healing at that age. It was just fixing. If I could just fix everything. So
Yeah.
basically, if I could just make everything my responsibility to fix, then I wouldn't feel like a burden or an obligation. I wouldn't feel that heaviness. If I just made things into my responsibility, then it's just fine. I'll just fucking fix everything. Oh, and so then meeting Cam, he could not have been a more prime candidate for that, for me to fix. So that really is all it was. Oh, did you want to say something?
No.
Okay. And at first, his dad was an alcoholic and was always at our house drinking. In the later years, his dad started dating a bartender stripper from Cambridge, and that began my life of having strippers over for Christmas dinner one year. I had a whole living room full of strippers from Nikki's. They ate Christmas dinner at my house before their shift. And the head of that pack, well, her name was Jessica, and she is the one who introduced Rich to cocaine. And that is when all of that came crashing down. Nothing was ever the same for any of us ever again. And I think it was Cam's first taste of coke. It was not mine. But Jess really turned him. And that is when Rich started trying to, well, then they broke up. And Rich started trying to kill himself. It happened a few times. The one night Kevin and I were at home. And by this time I thought I was like a big sister. So whenever Rich had trouble with Cam, because obviously as Cam grew up, Cam was treated not well. Mitchie was treated like the golden child. Mitchie could do no right or no wrong. Cam could do no right. Cam was always a very hard worker. And the older he got, the more his dad tried to make him pay bills with his money. Because then his dad went off sick and did have to have a surgery. He had a very skilled trade. He was a crane operator. He worked in Cambridge. He made great money until he started doing cocaine, and then it all did come crashing down. He went off on a comp case. Rich was illiterate, for real. So when all that started, that is when I found out that he was actually illiterate. I had to fill out all his WSIB paperwork. I think it was maybe WCB at the time. I had to do all of that for him. So Rich did not have any conflict resolving skills at all. Whenever he had a problem with Cam, he would come running over to our house physically, and he would come busting in our door, no knocking, yelling, "Where are you? You need to come straighten him out." And I remember the final day I said, "I'm not doing it anymore." I said, "I need him to respect me. The reason why he listens to me is because he respects me. If I start trying to run around acting like his mom and you need to pick up your shoes," because that's what it was over, was he had buddies over and there was shoes everywhere. And his dad had warned him. I'm like, huck him outside. I don't know what to tell you. They're teenage kids. Like, I said, I'm not getting in the middle of this one because I'm not his mom. You're his dad. I am not cleaning up all your messes for you. When Cam wanted to quit school, I did step in. I had a couple pep talks with him. I even drove him to school a couple times. And then, close to the time he quit school, he quit in grade 10. He was like the Trailer Park Boys movie. You know? Or like Ricky. He only got his grade 10. That is a true story.
Hey,
so, so his dad, I was losing my train of thought. I'm getting too much down a rabbit hole. But there's a lot of understanding to be had here, and believe me, that's, I sit awake at night until I pass out. A lot of nights I still think of all those things and everything I still could have done differently all those years ago. And so a lot of times I'm still in the middle of trying to blame myself. When I got so angry last year, when there were people who tried to blame me for what happened, And they had no right to. Nobody knows what I was dealing with. Nobody knows what it was making me feel like inside. Nobody knows how it feels unless you have it happen to you. An alcoholic who also has, well, I'm not an expert, but usually if you end up getting a problem with something big, it's because you're running away from whatever it is that you were trying to make yourself feel better over. So I know he had a lot of trauma when he was a kid.
Yeah.
But I really tried to fix as much as I could for him. And then the main trauma came, and I was part of all of it, and that is part of this. And his dad tried to kill himself a few times. There's my train of thought. Back on track. And the phone rang one night, and it was Rich, and he said, "I'm killing myself. You guys can't stop me. But I do need you guys to go pick Cam up from work." Cam got a job at A&W. And that was, he was in grade 10. So it was all happening at the same time. So he said, "Don't bother to come see me. I've got everything locked up. Don't smash the windows because the boys will get the house after." So we drove to Woodstock, and as soon as Cam saw us, I know he knew something was wrong. But he continued his shift. We ate supper there. We ordered food and took him home. Just to give a little idea of how embroiled I was in Cam's life. And when he had a problem, he came to me. He'd have friends at his house. If I had a problem, and I never thought of it as anything but he was the neighborhood kid. He was helpful. I did feel like maybe he had a little crush on me sometimes because he would leave his parties and all the girls and stuff and come over. "Oh, I see Kevin's gone again. Do you need help with anything?" Because I would call him. Kevin would go on benders and would be gone for 2 days. And this is before I found the energy to, start to learn how to do things myself. I was a pretty smart person. But I remember Cam replacing a toilet seat for me once. They're pretty easy to replace, but whatever. And then I got pregnant with Zach. I remember he helped me get a skunk out of my basement one night because I was trapped in there when we were doing renovations. So I actually only had one way to get out of that basement, and it was out through the outside, and that's where the skunk was waiting for me. And Halloween 2007, Zachary was 9 days old. Rich and Cam had both been into cocaine by then. And they got in a fight. And that is the night Cam's dad died. And Cam was actually accused and charged with his murder. He was on national news. He was in shackles. His face was not shown. But it is small couple towns, and it raced through this area like wildfire. Drumbo, Bright, Plattsville, Woodstock, all surrounding areas. Embro. Anybody who knew, you did not need to know. You did not need his face to be on the news because everybody knew who it was. And then he was eventually placed in his mother's surety. He did not kill his father. Him and his father did get into a fist fight over whatever. And Cam came over to our house, and we told him to go pack a bag and get over to our house so that he could stay with us and be away from his alcoholic dad. And that was both Kevin and I. And then his dad came over, and we told them to go over on our pool deck. We had a big fancy party pool deck, fenced in, tall fence. Go over there and fight because trick-or-treaters are starting to come. Don't embarrass us like this. So they did. And then all of a sudden we saw Rich walk by the window. Cam came in our side door. I realized, baby brain, we had a whole new subdivision going to Drumbo. I did not buy near enough candy. So I go racing up the street right away, go to the store to buy out a bunch of their candy. It took me about 4 minutes to do that, and I came racing back down the street, and as I was racing back down the street, the first of the fire trucks, or if you want to say the first of the emergency vehicles, started showing up. And first I thought it was a joke for Halloween, because Rich was very much about Halloween and Christmas, but Halloween was number one. And he outfitted his house for holidays like you would not believe. But he also didn't have friends on the fire department. I thought maybe it was like Kevin set it up because Kevin was a junior firefighter. He was the second graduating class of the probationary firefighter program that actually no longer exists again. It only lasted for a few years, and Kevin was the pilot project for it. So we didn't know what was happening. Cam was at our house. I ran in the house screaming, "Something's wrong with your dad." Cam lit a smoke in our kitchen. Kevin started screaming at him. He didn't know what he was doing. He had already went into shock. And we told him to go next door to find out what was going on. And that is when we all stood at our kitchen window and watched Cam get thrown on the hood of a cop car. And he got arrested. He went to jail. They had to do 2 autopsies on his dad. So after all was said and done, his dad died of a major heart attack. It just so happened that he had the major heart attack when they were fighting.
Okay.
And he laid down on his bed and he did die. The person who found him and called 911 was his ex-girlfriend, Brenda. We'd all saw her ride by on her motorcycle, and we were all like, "Oh, Brenda, oh, Rich gets into a fight with Cam and calls Brenda to dry his tears." No, she had been drinking at the pub, drinking and driving, on her motorcycle. And she decided to stop by and say hi to Rich. And she is the one who found him. She is the one who called 911. So for about a week after, just again to show how involved we were with these people and their lives and taking care of all of their stuff in their lives, Rich dated a lot. His son turned right into him. Mitchie did not. Mitchie was the opposite. He did not want any of the surface stuff. Mitchie wanted to fall in love. He did not want to be a part of the life that his dad had been a part of. Cam, on the other hand, that was his disease. So I spent the next week fielding ex-girlfriends of Rich's that showed up on my doorstep sobbing because they knew how close we all were. And they absolutely showed up on my doorstep to get hugs and consoling from me.
Of course.
Of course. Because I fixed everything for everybody. And then when Cam got out of jail, I made it my life's mission. I only wholesomely loved him then. I also remember the Buck and Doe we were at, and I remember having a different thought, and I was like, uh-oh. And he was 23 by that time. And, but as soon as he got out of jail and came back to Drumbo, he started getting into trouble almost right away, and his drinking got really bad. I tried everything to help him. I had him at my house. He did move in with me, just as a roommate for a while, but that is obviously where the crossover happened. But he had ladies over to my house. My girlfriend Sam, who was here yesterday, that was his first girlfriend. Her and I talked about a couple things yesterday. Had a couple chuckles, had a couple shaking of the head. She lived with me and Cam in my house when we were grown-ass adults. And I had Zachary, and she had kids by then, who also lived with us. And Cam brought women over for both of us to meet. It's quite a time. And then there was the turning point, and then he brought home a girlfriend of mine, and I got jealous. And that's when I realized what was going on and what my feelings were turning into. And then I realized I did love him. I don't know when I've realized over the last couple of years or through my journey of trying to figure out what the heck has ever happened here. That I was sick too from the time I was a girl. My mother had me in therapy when I was 11. I did not have a good self-image of myself. And that is what I'm still trying to piece together why, and the whole grandfather thing. I'm not making excuses to this day. Nobody in my family knows. He got to die in peace. Everybody got their peace except for me. So as soon as Cam came back,
Mom, can I have one of these? Oh, yeah.
I made it my life's mission to fix him, to help him, and make him be okay again, because I was there, and it wasn't his fault. And because he closed himself off from the rest of the world, I did take it as my full responsibility to help him get back, because I knew he wouldn't do it on his own. And he died never getting back there. All he did was get a severe, severe alcohol problem that got worse as the years went on. And who did I blame it on? Me. For not being just awesome enough to stop a full-blown alcoholic from drinking his life away. I definitely did not mean to get pregnant, that is for sure. He could barely fucking eat and take care of himself. We got pregnant a few times.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
A couple miscarriages, and one that was not. And all he ever wanted up until the very end, wanted more kids for me to take care of. And now I know why. I had the seer come to the house after he died. So what I had said to Cam constantly over the years was, once we were in the relationship, well, I was in a non-existing relationship with somebody who couldn't even love himself, let alone anyone else. Ryder is the closest I believe he ever came to loving somebody for real. And even then, in the end, he turned on him too. And Cam had every proper resource available for him to get help. You tried to help him. The rage I felt after you got sober and tried helping him so authentically, with no judgment, and he would laugh and throw everything in the garbage and say things about you. That's when he was, I feel like he just, well, and he propositioned you a few times too. He was just really sick, and I was told after he was gone that he had a sex addiction too. And I found that ravenously funny, since he appeared to have a sex addiction with everybody but me. At least I wasn't totally brain dead and stupid. I knew throughout the years there were things that I confronted him about throughout the years, and a lot of his lines were very asinine. He had propositioned one of his brother's ex-girlfriends, who actually contacted me at that time and sent me screenshots, and I confronted him. And at first he lied, and I said, "Why are you lying? I just said I have a screenshot." And then he said they were just having fun. I'm like, okay, so what would you have done if she had said yes? And he never answered that question. Come to find out, when he died in June, I brought it up to his brother. His brother actually was told about it at that time by Melissa, by the girl, the ex-girlfriend. She messaged Mitchie and said, "Your brother just did this to me." And I've told Amanda. So much heartache. But I wanted to fix him. And I know now, I questioned him over the years. I always said, please just be honest with me. I want us both to be happy, but I'm not happy. I never was. I'm just no longer interested in keeping an illusion of it anymore. It is killing me, and COVID really did turn it up for me. COVID actually made me stop, and I will tell you why. I was watching. I like to be a pervert. And I still like to say it that way to make it sound fun. But I do believe in people being open with their sexuality to a healthy degree. I believe some of what is wrong with this world. And some people disagree with me, and they say, how could you possibly say that with all of the degenerates in this world and the pedophilia and all this other stuff? And I'm like, but that is what tamping things down and suppressing things does. When you let people blow things out of the water, well, there were people who were repressing, things that they actually didn't need to repress, and then it turned them. Cam never wanted help. He just wanted to drink his life away. He never got help for anything that happened to him when he was a kid, or any of the trauma that he suffered. He didn't ask his parents to answer for anything. I do know that his mom feels guilt over certain things, and none of us can change any of that. But again, nobody said anything to her at the time. Cam never sat her down and said, why? And so all I wanted to do was fix him. I catered to him. I hid things for him. I lied for him if I needed to. Not for anything bad on anybody else's end. And the closer we got, and once we started a relationship that never got started because we got pregnant with her right away. Probably the week he moved back in. So he had moved out. We didn't talk for a good 7 months because I was able to call out things for him, and that's when we were roommates sleeping together. Trying that whole failing business that people think will work. And it doesn't. And so he moved out. He showed back up Mother's Day that would have been 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And showed up for Mother's Day on my doorstep with Uncle David, and apologized, and had brought me flowers, and said that he wanted to be friends again, and I did love him. But I know that it was the sick version of me loving something that I thought was my responsibility to fix. So then Thanksgiving that year is when we had a talk. He invited me over where he was staying for Thanksgiving. That is Uncle Paul. And he asked me if I wanted to make a go of it. I said, of course. He came home with me that night, and he never left. He came home because I had to work the next day dispatching, and it was a holiday. And he offered to babysit for Zachary. So we believe I probably got pregnant that week. Ryder. The other things that we went through before that, Cam there were so many red flags for me. The meme on Facebook that it's really, really funny. And if I'm thinking clearer, I laugh at it. And if I'm not, I really sob. Where it says, I take all the red flags as it's like we're going to Darien Lake, Six Flags. Fun times. Only he created my biggest nightmare. I lived a nightmare from the time I decided to say yes to him until the day he died, and I'm still living it. I am getting better. I am making steps now that we're in this house to heal myself for real, but I could just lay in this bed and let the world pass me by, and I'd be okay with that. He hurt me so badly. I gave up a piece of my life for him. Nobody asked me to. He certainly didn't. But that's the kind of person I was, and I wanted him to be happy. I didn't feel it was his fault on why he wasn't. all of the times that I saved him from all of his drinking and driving. I am the one who made him go through all of his court-ordered stuff when he got caught years ago and lost his driver's license because he almost killed him and somebody else by smashing into a Union gas box out in a field. The big ones that are meant for entire towns. Like, I don't know, the small town of Bright. And the gas one that he hit outside of Bright. He was on the run for 2.5 weeks. I am the one who called the police with his permission and turned him in. I am the one who drove him to AA that he never showed up to. I'm the one who booked all his appointments. And this was before we were together. I'm backtracking a bit. He was less than zero support for any hard time in my life. And most of the hard times had to do with him. The abortion, the miscarriages. I did them all by myself. I drove myself to and from them when I shouldn't have. And I remember after the one, I cried. And I said, you didn't even text me to ask me how I was doing. He goes, you had a fucking abortion. I don't know what the deal is here. He said, did you want a pat on the back? And yet I ended up having a son with this man. So I was broken too. He can't be blamed for everything. I was broken from the time I was a kid, and that was my way of making amends to my life. And so the night we found out I was pregnant with Ryder, I went to tell a girlfriend, and I got home and he had carved my initials in his arm.
Oh.
Yeah, the scar still showed to his dying day. Faintly, but I knew where it was, and so I could see it. And that's how he chose to handle that. I never ever had support from him. The most I would ever get was an occasional hug. I can probably count on both my hands how many hugs I got over even just the 9-year period that we were together for, as man and woman, or as me being by myself. And he used me as a mother figure, is all I ever was to him. Over the years, I always said to him, just admit it to me. I want us supposed to be happy. I know that you are not in love with me as a woman. I can feel it. You do not make me feel secure. You make me feel alone. You make me feel on my own. And you make me feel bad about myself. But I don't think you're doing that on purpose. I think you are not accepting who you think I am to you. And I believe you look at me like I'm your mom. I was a replacement to his mom. I gave him proper nurturing. I gave him proper everything. And that's not what he needed from a grown-ass woman. And he took advantage of it all. All of it. I created a home for us. He absolutely cut the grass. He trimmed the bushes. He was a landscape artist to the end. And he did a great job of that. And he did the laundry. And he folded it. Yeah. He didn't put it away. I put it away. That was a little too much. Every winter he was home. He loved a seasonal job because he needed a break. And whenever I would actually get the balls to say something to him, he would throw it back in my face and say that I just had menial jobs. Must be real hard sitting at my desk in the middle of a snowstorm being warm and able to snack and drink while I work. He never once respected everything I dealt with at my job. And the fact that those other real jobs can be a little mentally draining. And yes, it is a different draining than physically, absolutely. But he got to slug things out mindlessly. I didn't get to do that. So I may have been more comfortable than him, but I had more brain waves to deal with and more people's brain waves that didn't always work properly to deal with. And that can be exhausting. He always undermined everything I did, everything I had, no matter what I wanted to do. We went on a couple golf dates. I'll call them dates just to make my brain feel better, more special. We went on one date as a couple, and I paid for it. It was game time in Brantford, and I'm also the one who booked it, and I'm the one who planned it. We went to a few concerts, so after a few years, I got back into my concert mode. I thought that would help bring me back to being me. I am the one who paid for 100% of all the tickets. My 40th birthday party, he spent more money on buying a gazebo for $500 and all the booze. I don't drink, and I never drank at my birthday party, but because that got thrown in my face when he was then unable to pay his half of the bills that following week. And he screamed in my face and said, "You are an ungrateful bitch. I tried to do something special for you, and as usual, all you do is yell at me." I had to remind him that I didn't give a shit that I was turning 40 years old. Thank you for the birthday party that I barely got to enjoy since you ended up being a drunken mess and we spent most of the night having to calm you down and rein you in and try to make you behave so that you weren't taking your clothes off for all of my girlfriends and shoving your wiener in their faces. And then you and Callan then started a contest over it. You don't even remember my birthday party. You did not have that birthday party for me. And basically, I paid for my birthday party because now you're telling me that you don't have 1 cent. It is called we are adults and we have bills to pay. I did not need a $500 gazebo that you wrecked halfway through the night. And that we all had to then sit on the patio like normal. But thank you for making me feel guilty and that it's my fault. He had a very big talent for doing that all the time. It wasn't until I started after that 40th birthday party, I was actually practicing my dance at my 40th birthday party, and my niece taped it in secret and posted it on YouTube. It is still there to this day for anybody's viewing pleasure. I became certified that summer as a dance teacher, which I still do to this day. It did save me for quite a while. Save me or distracted me, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes he was supportive. He would even dance sometimes, but, well, when that happened, he was so hammered drunk he couldn't even see. The drinking just continued. He tried running himself off the road in Wolverton one night with my car. That's when I stopped allowing him to drive my car. And then I got myself my own car to start to separate myself from him. I was watching it was a real soft porn. It was not even porn. I'm just saying it for the sake of it. It was on TV. But it was a sex scene, and I was sitting there and I was numb. I actually was just staring at it, and then I realized what I was staring at, and I started crying. And that, folks, is when I woke up. So funny that that's what it took. I can't explain it. I guess we all got triggers. And my brain, I sat there and I thought I was ready to go through the rest of my life being depressed and just putting up with this and dealing with it because at my very heart of it, I don't know why, but I feel like it's my fault when I had nothing to do with anything. But I was there. I knew Cam before the real trauma started, and I felt like I owed him. And the only one who did feel like that was me. Sometimes he would throw things in my face, but the only one who tried fixing anything for him was me. He didn't even try. He didn't even care. All he cared about was drinking and his guns, his airsoft. All the times I questioned him, wondering why I wasn't attractive enough. And believe me, he definitely loved older women, so he didn't look at all older women like they were his mummy. Or maybe he did. But those ones he took his pants off for all the time. Young, older, Sam's mom. Whoever. He did. Made me feel stupid at every turn. Told me I was being crazy. When you read the gaslighting handbook, it's like it literally...
Took the word out of my mouth.
It was like, oh, this was my life with Cam. Lovely. Instead of just acting like a big old victim, by this time I had started to wake up. I went to a few retreats. I started to even unpack the grandfather thing. I have made every move to try to better this situation over the years. I love you for getting me help. It did not pan out for me. I did not find what I needed at Al-Anon. I only attended Alcoholics Anonymous a couple times. I will continue to, for support of Sarah whenever I can. You, her, sorry, I don't know where I'm looking right now. But I couldn't do it. Al-Anon, and I wasn't at the right place. So there's everywhere to help people out there. Maybe I won't get into that today, because I'm not bashing anything. Everything, you can be helped by whatever. There's a perfect fit for all of us for help. That just wasn't mine in that stage of my journey. I felt like everybody was just telling me to understand and see where he's coming from. Well, guess what? I bent over backwards and almost killed myself trying to see exactly where he was coming from and make excuses for him. And all I kept hearing was try and make him even more comfortable so he can continue to do what he is doing. And me sit in the background continuing to understand. I'd already understood enough. He was the one who needed to start cleaning up his act and understanding on the opposite. And that day never, ever came. Never. And he hated the fact that I went. He ridiculed me whenever he got really drunk. He called me names. He sneered at me. He tried to find the books one night so that he could throw them at me and rip them up. He never found them, but they weren't even hidden. And I had told him where they were like 8 times, so whatever. So that's, where all the fixing over the years came from. When I had Ryder, he is the one who for some reason felt exhausted. He is the one who got a ride home while I stayed in the hospital with our newborn son, and he went home and went to bed. And when I got home with our newborn son, he was sleeping. Because he, of course, had 10 beers really quick when he got home. Because he was the one who needed the support and the sleep. And I can absolutely say this. It doesn't matter that he's dead or not and can't defend himself. Because the truth is the truth. He never once got up with our son throughout the night. He actually slept on the couch for the first 3 years we were together. And it's only when I screamed at him one night and that he slept in our bed. And so he was never happy with that. I know he always preferred sleeping on the couch. So when I started to separate things after I had the talk with him when COVID hit and I had that awakening moment over the sex scene on TV, because that was mature, he always said it was an insult. It hurt his feelings that one or the other of us was sleeping on the couch. And I said, I don't know why it's hurting your feelings so bad. You never seemed to think it was a problem whenever I cried real tears to you without anger, before the anger started on it, on why you slept on the couch for the first 3 years of our relationship. And you said it was no big deal. You just slept better there. And I go, well, I sleep better on the couch now. So I guess deal with it. You never seem to care about my tears, so I'm not sure why you think that I should be concerned about your feelings now. I am taking my feelings back, as a matter of fact. But never once did he ever get up with Ryder. There's a reason why I'm the way I am with Ryder. I didn't sleep for the first 4 years he was alive. Every sound he made, there's mother's intuition, and then there's what I had. It's certainly not an extra special ability that I enjoy bragging about. But my brain, my whole body was tuned, fine-tuned for any little noise or anything. You never knew what Cam would do or where he would fall when he was drinking.
Yeah.
And he always just said he couldn't hear Ryder. And I wasn't working anyways. Well, let's be real. I only actually had 5 days of maternity leave before Woodstock Taxi begged me to come back. I had a newborn baby at an office 5 days a week. I at least got to go to the gym first, and that's when that's when exercise started to really help me in my life. And when I started to actually see the importance and the necessity of it. And the, what is it? Serotonin in our brains. It did really help me. I don't want to be saying stupid words for the camera. And,
maybe dopamine hits too.
Yep, that too. And, that's when I really felt alone. And once we had Ryder, I gotta admit, and I don't embarrass anyone, but like there's commercials on TV about it for certain things. And I roll my eyes. I judge some ladies pretty hard now in my heart, and it's only because of what I did. So I don't let it be known. I don't. But like, and there's these moms who have all these strollers and stuff, and I judge them in my head, and I know that deep down inside, I think it's because I know who their husbands are, and they have safe homes. They don't have to worry. They have a husband who actually does back them up. They won't even have to go back to work after a year. Now, I'm a worker, so that's not a full-on complaint, because anybody who knows me knows that I can only rest so much. Now, the old days, it was not fully like that. I became a workhorse because that is all I had. That and my kids. I either became a helicopter parent or I found my own balance. And so that was me being a great mom. I did pour my everything into my kids. But I also didn't believe in being a helicopter mom. My kids are very self-sufficient, but they're very caring. They always think of others before they think of themselves. But they also know what they want. They are great with boundaries because I taught them that, because their mother was not. Their mother did not want her sons to be a yes man, and they are definitely not. But I was alone. I actually thought that that baby would fix everything. I said the words out loud. And I laugh at Facebook posts. Again, don't comment. I do not ridicule people. I only ridicule them in my head. And I do that because I did the same thing. I was that person. And I know the danger of it, because it 100% of the time does not work. Nothing ever does for that. And when we had Ryder, it only got worse. When he needed feeding, I did it. When he needed diaper changes, I did it. And I also had a rule because of Zachary's father. If you're drunk, you're not allowed to touch my child.
Oh.
I did. You could drop them. Don't you dare don't you dare spank my child when you are drinking, because, and that did happen, all my rules came out of somewhere, didn't they? Don't they all for all of us? And Kevin started spanking Zach, and he didn't stop because he was super hammered and didn't realize when enough was enough, and time bled together.
Oh.
And I could say 100 more instances, but Cam just made me feel alone. When I started to wake up to this and I started researching things instead of just screaming in his face, which, yes, I would lose control whenever he would start a fight, or whenever I would confront him on something and then he would start screaming at me and calling me names, calling me very bad names. I started to research some stuff, and the night that he told Ryder, he got down in front of Ryder's face while Ryder was sitting on the couch, and he said, "You know your mom's a psychotic bitch, right? Your mother's imbalanced. She does this to your dad. She's doing this to me. It's your mom's fault." Ryder was old enough to understand. He was 5 years old at the time. And there was so many more instances like that. There was family Christmas, and that was that after this incident, he was no longer allowed to drink rye, and his final weekend on the face of this planet, he polished off 26er of it. So, good for you.
He got what he wanted.
He got what he wanted. Good job. We got home, and it was my family Christmas, by the way. My dad always had a full bar. My family does not drink per se. They like their bevies, but I believe it's the way alcohol should be enjoyed if you're going to enjoy it. Special occasions. So my dad doesn't drink, so at Christmas he always pulled out like every bottle of expensive booze he had. And some of it was rye, and Cam got super drunk on rye that night. He also lost $200. He is the one who pocketed both the boys' $100 bills. To this day, it still bothers me. I still do not know whether it was actually lost or he spent the money afterwards. Nor will I ever know. Thank goodness Zachary was dropped back off at his father's, because Zach would have remembered this incident and it would have been very traumatic. Ryder, however, does not, because he was still a baby. Cam started fighting with me. As soon as we walked in the door, he was already fighting with me. And I never took it laying down. I was never silent, which is why half the shit happened it did. And he proceeded to punch me in the face in the kitchen. My glasses flew off my face, and my face swelled out. My glasses flew against the microwave, fell on the floor, and I grabbed them, and I marched over to him. Now, where Ryder was in this is blurry, because suddenly Ryder was in my arms, and he definitely wasn't when I punched Cam in the face and broke his nose in 3 places. I knew where to hit because he already had broken his nose a couple times in life, and I just wanted to see it re-break. And I also couldn't believe he had punched me in the face. Another family Christmas, by the way, he shot me with one of his airsoft guns. That was fun. Hammered drunk. And still I stayed, because by then I just didn't know what else to do, and I thought, this is what I deserve. This is all I'm good for. This has been stemming from childhood. I was only good for one thing for men anyways. And now I think I'm a pretty good mom. I think I'm actually a pretty solid mom. So I don't need anything else in my life. I can just be an empty shell, and I don't deserve anything. I can show the boys real love, so I can make sure they grow up to be solid human beings. I don't need to be. And that's when Ryder suddenly was in my hands, and Cam was chasing me through the house because I had just made his nose bust blood flying everywhere, and he proceeded to run through the house, shaking his head and spraying it all over the place, saying, "Look at what you did to me. How do you like me now, bitch? How do you like me now?" One of the final things I looked at in that house after it was empty was the ceiling in the living room, because that's where most of the blood still was. No matter how much I scrubbed over the years, it did not come off totally. So you never really knew what it was unless I told you the story, but every time I looked up, it was there. I don't know if that's when I started to hate him. I did tell a couple people about that. And I did tell Sam and David. Within a month of it happening. David did sit Cam down after that. But I'm the one who stayed. I would threaten. I did separate us. Even before we broke up, and I separated us within the house. And he never took any interest in our lives anyways. So, over the years, we stopped asking him to do things, and then all of a sudden, his feelings were hurt. And I said, "Well, do you want to go here with us then?" "Oh, no, I've got stuff to do." "Yeah, okay." So, he just kept proving time after time that he only tried to make me feel bad. For some reason, Cam tried beating me up and hated me for... And that is what I still struggle with, sitting here today. I just think I keep trying to beat myself up over it. I keep trying to find where I can blame myself for what happened. So I guess we may as well just finish off with that then.
Okay.
And then I went away for the weekend in June. He was with his son. And am I doing a bad job? And I got home.
Again with this, I'm not good. of crap.
And I got home.